It turns out that you can still swipe me at this point. I thought I was getting cold. I won't guess left and right today. As usual, squeak when you swipe it. Or leave a man machine comment on the right. Let me know that I'm not well yet. Okay, that's the end of the nonsense. Let's get straight to today's topic. Hiking alone in the silent forest makes it tired. He chose a place near the hillside. The terrain is stable here. It won't be submerged by snow in winter. Can withstand strong winds. He used the shovel that had been with him for 2.5 years. Draw a one-bedroom shelter on the ground. He divides beds in the foundation pit. And reserve for the smell of shallots. In the depths of winter, the soil has become slightly harder as he shovels down. The next layer of soil is dug deeper. A blizzard suddenly fell at this time. Shelter foundation pit. The white area forms obvious square craters. He knows the importance of this chicken pit, so each shovel is divided into the desired size. Dig deep enough. Not only does it help the cabin stay stable, it can also withstand the severe cold wind in winter. At this moment, it's like crafting a work of art. After the foundation is dug, he began to collect the scraps of wood around him in the forest during the blizzard. Dead leaves and branches are scattered on the ground. The man embedded a wooden strip into the ground. The central plank is supported by more wood. In this way, the fire will be based on stability. Use an axe to cut off some wooden whiskers to serve as women. Then he took out the beautiful stick he carried with him and rubbed it and ignited as the fire lights up this white area. Temperature rise. He finally felt a touch of warmth in the snow. The river water has been frozen by the extreme cold temperature, but he knew he could use the snow. He filled a jug with pure white snow. Bring it back to camp and place it on a fire to heat it into water. This will be his source of water in the forest. Guaranteed his basic survival needs in the forest. And then there's the frame for the house. This job requires a large amount of wood. The man pulls out a saw. Find a fallen tree with snow. Split sentences from the center of the tree. The trunk came crashing down, breaking through the season of the early winter forest. Every piece of wood was chopped off by at bifurcation and raised positions. Only keep the smooth trunks. He cut the pieces of wood to the proper length. These woods will be composed of the main frame of the snow house. The process of logging is time-consuming and laborious. The coldness of the extreme cold makes him stay awake all the time. He carried the logs back to the camp. Finally, he collected enough wood. But by now it was getting dark. By the next day, the firewood had been flooded by the blizzard. He fastened the rough wood to the corner of the chicken pit, then used wooden sticks to compact the surrounding soil, and then the second one. And these logs are the beams of the house, and ensure load bearing in the next time. And he does exactly the same thing with all the wood, until a few pieces of wood are all embedded in the ground to ensure air circulation inside the wooden house and effectively transfer indoor smoke. He decided to make a simple shallot. He set aside a place in the chimney and started digging. The goal is to connect from top to bottom. After digging out a circular groove at the bottom, complete the chimney path. He poured boiling water into the mud, and he used a spatula to dilute it. Then I moved back a few big rocks from the west. He's going to make shallots from the soil, in order to save materials and ensure the hardness of shallots. Then add the stone to mix. Freehand production takes a lot of patience and skill. The position of each stone needs to be as symmetrical as possible to ensure the stability of the shallots. It enhances the beauty of the shallots as the frame of the shallots takes shape. Completed shallots. From a distance, it looks like a pine nut. This is the wooden house in winter, the rigid demand task of survival in the winter forest. You have a chimney. Your wooden house will no longer be plagued by smoke, provided him with a sense of security. Complete shelter. He peeled off the skins of all the stored wood. Only keep the smooth torso, and polish some bumps. Finally, cut grooves on both sides of the wood. Then use the grooves to complete the simple bamboo shoot structure. In the following time, he is naturally the same. Connection successful. 3 pieces of wood complete the roof frame. The next step is to improve the roof. In order to ensure that the exhaust port will not be bisected the wood of the smoke window. Finally, he did the same to the roof on the other side. Pick up, insert wild nails into wooden joints. When the overall frame of the wooden house is gradually perfected, a sudden heavy snow. It enveloped the entire forest. Blizzard mixed with cold air covered the entire forest, but his speed didn't slow down at all. Snowflakes covered the roof of the wooden house and the surrounding ground, while he was perfecting the walls around the cabin. Insert nails into the wood to complete the splicing. This ongoing blizzard watched his sanctuary grow. In the construction of a snowy log cabin, he didn't ignore the details. In order to ensure the ventilation inside the wooden house, he specially prepared a place for a small window. It doesn't just brighten up the inside. It's good for air circulation. To avoid being soaked through the roof by heavy snow again, he kept adjusting the waterproofing of the roof to ensure that the cabin can withstand the impact of blizzard. He fastened the tarp to the roof. And we attach a loop of wood to the outside. Finally, cover the roof with black pictures. And in order to ensure that the rain does not penetrate the roof, mud filling of the eaves effectively prevents freezing into cones after the roof is completely covered with mud. And he started making a path for the front door. It will be easier to get in and out. And the allure of wilderness construction is hand-to-hand beating. Wooden doors remain the same. For pieces of wood make the door frame. Then continue to splice the wooden strips in the center. Nearly 20 kilograms of log is installed on a reserve door frame. The windows are filled with windproof and insulating plastic sheds, and finally connect to the cemetery with nails. Complete tomb walls and gaps in doors and windows. It's filled, naturally, with dirt, although it is a very slow work. But zero cost and quality ceiling effect, or was it done by him? When everything is ready, he lit a fire outside the wooden house. Sausage that is everything ready. Wear it with a stick and smoke it. He looked at the newly built wooden house, eyes full of satisfaction and relief. And the mud blocks reserved in the house act as bedboards. Now all you need to do is cover it with a layer of wooden barrels and a comfortable mattress. At this moment, he found peace of mind and belonging. The old school who loves the world today re-enter the snow journey. It snowed heavily for the entire 12 years. Old school backpacking, crossing this white zone alone. Adhering to the principle of shooting a gun and find shelter again. And this blizzard filled his experience. He walked into the snow back of the mountain and made a decision. That's waiting for the blizzard to pass. Collecting firewood. Therefore, build a shelter. The birch logs at the shelter will be used dry. At this moment, he placed the thinner trees one by one to uniform size. Then cut the wood one by one and stock it up for later use. Then these two are fixed as a cross structure. And using a wild steel, silk rope winding connection, he inserted several cane tendons into the cross. The circular frame hub part can be completed, since he is about to face a new blizzard. So he had to speed up. Frame part of the shelter until this cylindrical shelter frame. When entering and leaving the edge, a blizzard falls again. Free-a-jawed. In the forest wrapped in silver, he frosted all the plants. Therefore, he perfected the cylinder under this goose feather snow. It uses the thinner tree trunk as the outer support of the cylinder. Fix the trunks one by one and cut them one by one. Make sure the edges of the cylinder are neat. Finally, tighten the wild steel wire. The old school has returned to its hometown and has passed the blizzard. Due to the violence in this area, snow could come at any time. So he has to finish building the shelter as soon as possible. He quickly took out the 2.5 centimeters thick hemp rope, then wrapped the hemp rope around the outside of the cylindrical frame. And finally, leverage. You can drop it in the air. The air cylinder hammock at this time goes out for a trip. The old school then loosened the clods with a shovel. Then pour the nearby suction water into and add a piece of withered grass. Just stir it well. Can be used as a frame pouring material. In order to ensure that the cylinder has a waterproof effect. Some cement powder was also added in advance. Take advantage of all the free natural resources. This is the Wilderness Survival Guide. And not only that, old school small walls were deliberately reserved inside the cylinder. After all, when winter comes, living inside can effectively heat. Smoke slowly drifting out of the onion exhaust flue. Very pyrotechnic. A new snowflake is slowly falling. He hid in the cylinder and watched. Field winter beauty. In order to perfect the ceiling of the shelter, he cut some johns and spliced them together. Use as a cylindrical entrance door, so you can avoid the wilderness. The entry of wild animals in the forest. Immediately after, he spliced another layer of thickened plastic film. Secure it to the window reservation. And finally, a layer of mixed cement. To shelter from the wind and rain. The inexhaustible moss of the forest is the best material. With a new skin, the cylinder shelter takes on a new look. Have a wild meal in the depths of the deserted forest. Cook. The aroma of pork rib soup in the pot made his mouth water. He has worked hard for a long time. Finally relax in this moment. After the big fish bet, using a fishing fire to light a kerosene lamp, eat and drink, you can get into the cozy hammock cabin. Have a good rest. Due to the high humidity in the northern part of this forest, the temperature difference is large, so the old school third sanctuary needs warmer. To escape the rainy season, the old school decided to build a wooden house again. He set his sights on this windproof anticline. Poe then proceeded to dig the chicken pit. Due to the high humidity in the forest, the soil is not too hard in the early winter. As the sun gradually illuminates the forest, with the unremitting efforts of the old school shovel, dig out the chicken pit and travel. However, when the preliminary work on the chicken pit was completed, he began to study how to build a warm fireplace. Now the cold winter is coming. He had to think about how to spend the night, not frozen into ice cubes, so he ran the fireplace up and down, avoid carbon monoxide poisoning. The fireplace is now perfect, but he has to figure out how to disperse the smoke perfectly. And this corroded tree can be used as a tobacco onion. The old school uses an iron axe to slot in the gap of the wood. The plan is to add another step to the interior space. The skylights were open while the B group was sleeping. They all agreed to bring down the old school ants. Credit score. As the iron axe shatters the inside of the wood, a hollow wooden laxative is made. The old school wraps a wild rope around to fix the shallops. As he stuffed the stove with firewood, and light bursts of stove smoke make the shelter smoke stumble. In order to make the shelter relatively secure, old school with hand saws cut well-proportioned wood. Enhance the ornamental nature of the shelter frame. Place the wood in the corner pit and restore the soil mass. We can build the wooden framework of the shelter. When the first snow of winter falls, everything in the forest is frosted. Old school holding a bundle of wood, walking on a rustling sprite. And this wilderness sanctuary was built. It made him feel elevated. He threw a bundle of wild wool, wrapped around the connection of the frame. Benefit from the advantage of acting as an underground shelter. The wind resistance of the tomb wall is more outstanding, so you just stack the wood on top of the frame. Until the heat of the sun melts the snow. The old school is back. Fill the gaps in the shelter with wood. And the play at this time, it's the sanctuary that's out there. To create a hidden ultimate sanctuary. He collected countless dry leaves from the back mountain. We're going to spread it over the ceiling to improve the seal. The clods of the excavator pit, waste utilization complete, laying on the ceiling, enhance the ceiling effect. The damp sod is placed on the eaves of the old school, used to prevent ice pick problems caused by cold winter temperatures. The old school steps into a mossy terrain. In order to make the surrounding area of the shelter no longer monotonous, collected 0.01 tons of moss, spread it all out on top of the shelter. Had to, saying that the new skin of the shelter is indeed new. The construction of the tomb wall is already a colleague. First, a log is spaced to a similar length, then do the same, wrapped around the frame with wooden rope. Light rain in the sky, urging the construction progress of the old school. This side of the tomb wall is more different. Old Pat specially reserved a square vacancy in the center, so you can make a little window, viewing the natural landscape. It has to be said that moss shion is available in a wide range. The gap in the tomb wall can be filled. Prevent cold wind from blowing into the considering interior. The inconvenience of entering and leaving. He shoveled a path in front of the door. Although the shelter run by the land temple is compact, but also feels safe. Cover the moss lightly behind the front wheel. Consider the weather forecast for tomorrow. Snow, so he desperately needed a wooden door to block the cold wind. It's made possible thanks to old school knitting. I used rope to build a wooden door. It fits in the frame. After briefly testing the function of the door frame, he found a tired day's body, hungry and cold. Therefore, he placed the teapot he had carried with him for many years on the fire. The wild fruit on the branch can be light. Stream water brings a touch of sweetness. Add until the hot water inside the teapot is boiling. In the clammy wilderness forest, a cup of warm tea. To replenish his body with calories, restore strength. Living alone in the wilderness is so simple. Put on a thermal pad and you can sleep at any time. Rest with the sound of firewood in the fireplace. Really decompress. Wake up the next day. The forest is a white land. The fruit on the branches is frosted. Now the old school is awakened by the sound of wind. Open the wooden door. Take a breath of cold, fresh air. He looked at the snowy forest in winter and sighed. Living alone in the wilderness is really worth it, but the sudden drop in temperature forced him to act. In order to restore the body temperature as soon as possible, forest, he began to collect the scattered pieces of wood on the ground. Prepare for life. Light the fire and feel the warmth. Old school sticks a wild punch in a bachelor. And when the fire was burning, he was spinning the chicken all by hand. Eat a meal in the ice and snow. What is the experience of roast chicken? I can only say that it is like a spring breeze blowing over Lubu Autumn Lake. Rain infiltrates Juchoigu. The old school can finally bring lunch back to the shelter. Great speed.